When truth hits your LA, when truth crashes into your life without warning, there are moments in life when the truth doesn't knock. It breaks the door and walks straight in. It doesn't care if you're ready. It doesn't care if your heart is steady. It shows up fast, sharp, and loud. And in that single moment, everything you thought you understood about your world can fall apart. Betrayal works like that. One message, one sentence, one action can flip your life upside down. It hits so suddenly that you stand there wondering how something so painful could happen in the middle of an ordinary day. Let me tell you something. When truth crashes in, it doesn't just expose people. It exposes you. It shows what you depended on for peace, what you believed without questioning, what you ignored because it was easier to hope than to see. It shakes your identity because the person you trusted becomes a stranger. And when that happens, you don't just lose them. You lose the picture you built of yourself standing beside them. Think of a person who trusted their best friend for years, shared everything, planned everything. Then one morning, they discover the friend had been speaking against them behind their back. In a single instant, the world they stood on feels shaky. But here's the twist. That moment of truth becomes the moment they wake up. They see who was real and who was pretending. They see where they had placed their peace. And even though it hurts, that shock becomes the first step toward a stronger, clearer life. The truth that enters without warning may feel like a storm, but storms do one thing well. They show what is strong enough to stand. The pain that breaks you also reveals the stronger you. There is a phase you go through after the shock. First comes the punch of disbelief. Then your mind becomes numb, like it's trying to protect you from everything at once. You stare into space, replaying moments, trying to understand where things shifted. That numbness feels heavy, but it's not the end. It's your system slowing everything down so you can face what happened without falling apart. But then something powerful happens. After the numbness fades, clarity begins to rise. You start to see signs you missed. You start remembering the small moments that didn't sit right. And slowly, a new truth appears. You were stronger than you gave yourself credit for. The pain felt like it broke you, but it was actually pulling you out of a place where you were shrinking yourself just to keep something alive that was already dying. Think about someone who went through a sudden breakup after years of sacrifice. At first, the pain crushes them. They feel weak, empty, confused. But after some days or weeks, a realization appears. They begin to breathe again. They notice they can think clearly for the first time in years. They notice how drained they had become trying to fix everything alone. That earthquake inside them didn't destroy them. It cleared the ground so they could rebuild themselves with more truth and more strength. Pain has a strange way of guiding you. It strips away the false pieces so the real you can finally rise. It doesn't feel like growth in the moment, but it becomes the turning point you look back on and say, that was where I stopped breaking for others and started building for myself. Your response is the box that shows your true power. When life hurts you, people expect you to fall apart. They expect shouting, begging, chaos, or revenge. But the real show of strength is not in noise. It's in your response. Your reaction becomes the box that holds your true power. You can either give your power away through anger, or you can hold it close through calmness. Calmness is not weakness. It is control. It is choosing not to let someone else guide your actions. Dignity is not silence. It is strength. It is standing tall even when your world feels heavy. When you choose steadiness in the middle of hurt, you confuse every person who expected you to break. Imagine someone who is publicly blamed for something they didn't do. Everyone is watching, waiting to see their reaction. Instead of shouting or defending themselves endlessly, they stay firm, speak only the truth, and let time reveal everything. Weeks later, the truth comes out. People don't just respect their innocence. They respect the way they handled the storm. Your response becomes your proof. Not of what happened to you, but of who you are. When others expect chaos, choose control. When they expect you to collapse, choose stillness. When they expect you to lose yourself, choose to grow into someone even stronger. You cannot control who hurts you, but you can control the way you rise after the hit. And that rise is where your real power is seen, when truth rises from the Cohen. Hidden truth finally breaks the surface. There are secrets that stay buried for years, growing roots in silent places. They hide under smiles, under polite words, under routines that look normal from the outside. But no matter how deep they're pushed down, truth has a way of climbing back up. It doesn't stay quiet forever. It waits for the right moment, then rises and exposes everything people hoped would stay unseen. And when that happens, it hits you hard, not because you were blind, but because you trusted what you were shown. Let me tell you something. What comes to the surface is not a sign of your failure. It is the exposure of someone else's choices. Think of a parent who discovers their child had been lying for years, hiding mistakes behind carefully crafted stories. When the truth finally breaks out, the pain feels sharp, but it also shows who was real and who wasn't. The secret wasn't your weakness. The secret was their fear of being seen clearly. When hidden truth rises, it may shake your ground, but it also frees you from confusion. You stop blaming yourself. You stop wondering what you did wrong. You finally see that the truth came out not to ruin you, but to release you from the lies that were holding you still. Loving someone doesn't mean you truly know them. You can spend years loving a person and still not know the real them. You know, the version they let you see. You know the voice they used when they wanted you calm. You know the side they presented when they needed comfort. But people can wear masks longer than you expect. And when the mask falls, the shock hits you harder than the act itself. Maybe you stayed loyal, patient, and honest because you believed the bond was real. You believed the words, trusted the promises, and held on to the picture they created. But loving someone doesn't guarantee they showed you their truth. Think about someone who stood by their partner through every challenge, only to discover later that their partner had been living a double life. The pain wasn't just the betrayal. It was the realization that the connection they protected so fiercely was only half real. But here's where you protect yourself from breaking. You do not let their hidden side define your worth. You do not let their behavior rewrite your story. You learn something powerful. Your love was real, their honesty was not. And you walk forward knowing that what they hid doesn't reduce the value of what you gave. Life breaks without warning, and that's why your strength matters. Life rarely gives signs before it shifts. The call comes out of nowhere. The confession happens on an ordinary day. The person you trusted changes direction without explaining a thing. You don't get time to prepare. You don't get a countdown. You just feel your world tilt, and for a moment, everything inside you goes quiet. This is why your strength matters. Not the loud kind, the inner kind. The kind that wakes up when everything else falls apart. Think of someone who loses their job without warning. 1 minute they're stable, the next they're sitting in silence wondering how to start again. But after the shock fades, they step up, they plan, they rebuild. And months later, they end up in a better place than before. Life will always throw moments at you that you didn't see coming. You cannot stop the hit, but you can choose your stand. Resilience isn't built in comfort. It's built in the days when you breathe through the pain and keep walking anyway. And when life breaks without warning, you discover that your strength wasn't missing. It was waiting for the right moment to appear. Your response defines the real Esther R. Why your calm reveals their chaos when someone hurts you. lies to you, or blames you unfairly, they expect you to explode. They expect anger, shouting, or endless explanations. But when you stay calm, something powerful happens. Your steadiness exposes their disorder. Your quiet shows the mess they tried to hide. Your calm becomes a mirror that reflects everything they never wanted to face. Think of a situation where someone accuses a person out of fear or guilt. When the accused responds with clear words, steady breathing, and no rage, the truth becomes louder than any argument. Everyone watching notices who is secure and who is shaking inside. The calm person is not weak. Their peace is proof that they don't need noise to explain their truth. Your quiet presence can say what 1,000 words cannot. It shows you're not afraid. It shows you're not controlled by anyone's actions. And in the end, imagine a person who finds out they were betrayed. They could scream, call everyone, or try to prove their worth. Instead, they take a different path. They choose silence. They choose distance. They choose clear steps that protect their future. That choice becomes their strength. Their silence is not fear. It is wisdom. It is control. It is the understanding that not every battle deserves your energy. The choices you make in your hardest moments shape the path ahead. And when your choices are steady, thoughtful, and firm, they show a strength that noise could never give. Your next move becomes the story you live with after the shock. After the pain, after the truth rises, there comes a moment when you have to decide your next step. That step becomes the story you live with. You either rise from the hit or stay stuck in the place where everything fell apart. The world will not move you forward. You move yourself. Think of someone who faces public humiliation. They could hide forever, letting that moment define them. Or they could stand up, rebuild their life, and let their strength speak louder than the fall. Years later, no one remembers the hit. They remember the rise. Your next move matters because it shapes your future. It becomes the chapter that teaches others what strength looks like. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need a clear choice. Move forward, not backward. That step becomes your turning point. The truth that frees pain pushes you toward the door you tried to ignore. Sometimes pain is the only thing that wakes you up. You see signs, you feel discomfort, but you convince yourself everything is fine. You keep the peace, avoid the tough questions, and tell yourself the storm will pass. But the storm doesn't pass, it grows. And when it finally hits, it pushes you straight toward the door you pretended wasn't there. Think of someone in a draining relationship. They feel tired, unseen, and unheard. They know deep inside something is wrong, but they stay because leaving scares them. Then one day, the truth hits so hard that staying becomes impossible. That pain pushes them toward change. It forces them to walk through the door they spent years avoiding. Pain isn't there to punish you. It's there to guide you. It pushes you toward the life that actually matches your worth. Betrayal reflects their value, not yours. When someone lies to you, cheats you, or hides the truth, it's easy to blame yourself. You wonder if you missed something. You wonder if you weren't enough. But betrayal is not a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of theirs. Their choice shows their limits, not yours. Picture a loyal friend who always stood by others. One day they discover that someone used their trust for their own gain. For a moment, the loyal friend questions everything about themselves. But soon they realize something important. Their honesty wasn't the problem. The other person's lack of character was. The wrong actions of others cannot change the truth of who you are. You didn't lose anything. You simply saw what was already broken in them. You're not losing love. You're losing the lie that held you when truth appears. It often feels like you're losing everything. You feel like love slipped through your fingers. But what you're losing is not love. You're losing the false picture that kept you stuck. You're losing the lie that pretended to be love. Think of someone who stayed in a relationship because the good moments were just enough to stop them from walking away. But later, they discover those good moments were built on half-truths. At first, heartbreak feels heavy. But with time, they see the truth clearly. They didn't lose the person they needed. They lost the illusion that was. Stopping them from growing. The truth that feels painful today becomes the freedom that shapes your tomorrow. You walk away lighter, clearer, and ready for a love that doesn't need lies to survive. The stories you hide and the life you can be wild. The story you carry but never speak. About everyone carries a story they hide. A story that shaped them quietly. It could be a childhood memory, a broken trust, or a moment that left a mark they can't fully explain. You don't talk about it, not because it's weak, but because it changed you in ways words can't describe. Think of someone who grew up in a home filled with fights. They learned early how to stay silent, how to protect their heart, and how to move through life carefully. They never talk about it, but it shaped their strength. It taught them how to read people, how to stand firm, and how to survive storms. Alone, your hidden story is not a burden. It is the reason you see life differently. It's the quiet chapter that built your backbone. And even if you never speak it, it becomes the foundation you rise from. The fear of being seen for who you once were. Many people are afraid of being judged for their past. They fear someone will bring up the mistakes they made, the choices they regret, or the person they used to be. That fear keeps them small. It makes them hide, not because they are weak, but because they're tired of being misunderstood. Imagine someone who made bad choices in their youth. Years later, they've grown, changed, and become someone stronger. But they still fear being seen through old eyes. What they forget is this: the past is not a life sentence. People grow, people learn, people rise. The fear will always whisper, but you don't have to listen. You are not the person you once were. You've earned the right to step forward. Your past is a chapter, not the title of your life. Your past is part of your story, but it is not the name of your life. It explains where you came from, not where you're going. A chapter can be painful, but it doesn't decide how the book ends. Think of someone who failed in business once. People mocked them, doubted them, and used their failure as a label. But that person tried again, learned more, grew stronger, and eventually succeeded. The chapter that almost broke them became the lesson that carried them forward. Your past is behind you. Your choices today shape what comes next. And when you accept that the past is just one chapter, you free yourself to write the rest with confidence. You cannot outrun yesterday, but you can rise above it. You can try to forget your past, hide from it, or pretend it never happened. But yesterday follows you until you face it. You can't outrun it, but you can rise above it. Rising doesn't mean erasing the past. It means learning from it and using it to build a stronger future. Imagine someone who made mistakes that cost them relationships or opportunities. They tried to ignore the past, but the guilt stayed. One day, they finally stopped running and confront the truth. That moment became the start of their rise. They took the lessons, corrected their path, and built a new version of themselves. You rise not by escaping your past, but by understanding it, by accepting it, by using it as fuel instead of fear. That rise becomes the proof that growth is possible for anyone brave enough to face their truth. Owning your truth is where your new life begins. A new life doesn't start when everything becomes easy. It starts when you stop hiding who you are, when you stand in your truth, even if it's messy, even if it's complicated, even if it scares you. Truth gives you a clean path, a straight path, a path that leads forward instead of around in circles. Think of someone who lived years pretending to be fine, pretending to be strong, pretending their heart didn't hurt. One day, they finally speak their truth, even if only to themselves. That honesty lifts a weight they carried far too long. And from that moment, they begin to rebuild their life with clear eyes and steady steps. Owning your truth is not easy, but it is powerful. It frees you from the lies you believed. It gives you space to grow. And it becomes the point where your old life ends and your new life begins. The courage to live as your real soul of authenticity. The freedom you keep avoiding, there's a kind of freedom most people never touch, and it's the freedom of being real. We hide parts of ourselves because we fear judgment, rejection, or misunderstanding. We act stronger than we feel. We pretend we don't hurt. We say yes when our heart is saying no. But every time you hide your truth, you lock yourself inside a life that doesn't belong to you. You stay trapped behind a version of yourself that keeps everyone comfortable except you. Think of someone who always plays the role of the strong one, even when they're breaking inside. They carry everyone's weight but ignore their own. That's not strength. That's self-denial. Authenticity doesn't require perfection. It simply asks you to stop running from your real self. And once you stop hiding, life finally becomes yours again. When you stop pretending, your life starts moving. Pretending drains your spirit. It keeps you stuck in places you outgrew long ago. When you stop pretending everything is fine, you open the door for real change. When you stop acting like you're okay with people's behavior, you make room for respect. When you stop forcing yourself to stay small, you start rising. Think of someone who kept pretending their job was enough, even though it burned them out every day. The moment they finally admitted their truth, they found the courage to chase something better. Life moves when you do, and you move when you stop pretending. Honest truth creates motion. It pulls you forward. Your life doesn't start when things. You've spent years shrinking yourself so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. You held back your ideas. You hid your talents. You softened your voice, all to avoid conflict, envy, or attention. But every time you dim your light, you lose a piece of yourself. Think of a student who hides their intelligence because classmates mock them for raising their hand too often. Once they stop dimming themselves, they rise academically, earn opportunities, and grow into someone confident. The same happens in adulthood. When you stop dimming your light, you start seeing your potential clearly. People may react, but their reactions belong to them, not to you. Your life becomes brighter the moment you stop hiding the parts that make you powerful. Your truth is your weapon. Use it boldly. Your truth is the strongest thing you have. It protects you from manipulation. It shields you from lies. It gives you clarity when everything else feels confusing. A person who knows and speaks their truth becomes hard to control. Think of someone standing in court, sharing the exact facts of their experience. No fear, no confusion, only truth. And that truth becomes their shield. You don't need to shout. You don't need to defend yourself endlessly. You just need to stand boldly with what is real. Your truth cuts through noise and exposes what others tried to hide. Use it with confidence. It's your greatest weapon. Rise into the life that belongs to the real you. You can't rise into your future while holding on to a version of yourself that isn't real. The life meant for you requires honesty, courage, and self-respect. It requires you to let go of who you were forced to be and claim who you truly are. Think of someone who lived years following other people's plans, family plans, society's plans, expectations that had nothing to do with their heart. The moment they stepped into their own identity, their life opened in ways they never imagined. Rising doesn't mean becoming someone new. It means returning to who you were before doubt shut you down. Step into the life that belongs to the real you, not the edited version you created for approval. Turning judgment into derive, it turned every critic into fuel for your next step. People will talk, doubt, and question you. That's human nature. But you get to decide what their voices mean. Every critic can become fuel if you choose to use their words as energy instead of wounds. Think of a young athlete who was told they'd never make the team. Instead of quitting, they trained harder. Months later, they earned their spot. Critics don't decide your path. They spark your drive. Judgment can break you or build you. You choose judgment as a filter. It either weakens you or strengthens you. When people look at you with doubt or compare you to someone else, you feel pressure. But pressure can create two things: cracks or growth. Think of someone who was laughed at for starting a small business. Many would have quit, but they kept going. And soon, the same people watching turned silent. Judgment only has the power you give it. Every doubt becomes evidence for your victory. When people doubt you, they're not predicting your future, they're exposing their limits. Every time someone says, "You can't," you're handed proof of what you will overcome. Think of a student told they weren't smart enough for a certain career. They studied harder, worked longer, and made it. And years later, their success became the very proof that the doubt was wrong. Stop proving them wrong, start proving yourself right. Chasing the idea of proving others wrong keeps you trapped in their expectations. Real power comes when you prove yourself right, when you follow your own goals, when you trust your own steps. Think of someone who worked day and night just to silence haters. But one day, they realized their real drive came from wanting a better life, not from seeking approval. That's when their growth became real. Validate yourself before the world ever does. You can't wait for the world to approve before you move. If you depend on others to feel worthy, you will always stay stuck. Think of a singer who waited years for someone to tell them they were good enough. The moment they believed in their own voice, opportunities started coming. Confidence starts inside. You must validate yourself first, rising beyond your piestas. When your growth finally speaks louder than your past, there comes a moment when your growth becomes impossible to ignore. The person you used to be fades, and the person you've become stands tall. Think of someone who once struggled with anger, but later learned control, patience, and calm. Their growth speaks louder than the mistakes people remember. Success is the only introduction you need. You don't need long explanations or long backstories. Your success speaks for you. When you rise, when you build, when you achieve what once felt impossible, no one asks about your past, they see your strength. Let your results introduce you before your words do. Their silence will tell you everything about your rise. When you start growing, the same people who underestimated you become quiet. Their silence is your proof. Think of someone who succeeded after years of being overlooked. Suddenly, the people who mocked them had nothing to say. Silence is often the clearest sign that you've risen. Your strength will shock them, your story will humble them, people assume your pain will break you. They never expect it to shape you. When they see your strength, they're shocked. When they hear your story, they're humbled. The journey you walked, the challenges you faced, becomes the reason people respect your rise. Your results will always speak the loudest. Truth words can be doubted. Promises can be ignored, but results cannot be denied. When you show what you've built, what you've overcome, and who you've become, your results tell a truth no one can argue with. Standing in your own root, step into your own courtroom. With your truth-ready life will force you into moments where you must defend your story. Not to others, but to yourself. Stand firm with your truth. Know what you lived. Know what you survived. That truth becomes your strength in every difficult moment. What power are you still hiding from the world? Most people have strength they haven't used yet, talents they've ignored, courage they've buried. Think about the power you're hiding. The world can't see it until you choose to release it. Fear will hold you until you decide to stand. Fear locks you in place, but only until you choose to rise. Stand even if your voice shakes. Move even if your heart doubts. Once you stand, fear loses its hold. Walk into every room like you belong there. Stop shrinking yourself. Stop watching from the back. You have the right to take space. Walk into every room with the quiet belief that you deserve to be there. That belief changes everything. Your confidence is the key. They never expected people notice confidence. Not arrogance confidence, the calm kind, the steady kind. The kind that says you know your worth without shouting it. That is the key that opens doors others thought you could never touch. Owning your indie only. You decide the verdict of your life. Your life is not decided by anyone else's judgment. Only you decide your outcome. Your decisions, your actions, your truth. These shape your verdict. Everyone else is just watching. They don't get to define you or limit you. People may talk, but they cannot define your limits. Only you know your potential. Only you know your journey. Their opinions are noise. You decide your path. The ending of your story belongs only to you. You write your final chapter, not your mistakes, not your critics, not the people who doubted you. You choose how your story ends. That power belongs only to you. Build an unstoppable mindset that can't be judged. When your mind becomes strong, judgment loses its sting. You stop reacting. You stop fearing. You move with clarity. Build a mindset that cannot be shaken by opinions. Let them freeze when they finally see the real you. One day, people will see the strength you've built. They will see the growth they never believed in. And they will freeze, not because you changed suddenly, but because you finally showed who you were all along. What life gives you bees, what you give back to life reflects. Everything you've learned in life mirrors what you put into it. The lessons you've learned, the pain you've survived, the wisdom you've gained, they all show in the way you give back. When you've known struggle, you understand patience. When you've known heartbreak, you understand compassion. When you've known confusion, you learn clarity. Your experiences shape the way you treat people, the choices you make, and the path you build. Think of someone who grew up with very little. Instead of becoming bitter, they used their past to help others rise. Their pain became their purpose, and their kindness became their strength. What you give back is not measured in money or praise. It's measured in the impact you leave on others. When you give honesty, life returns clarity. When you give effort, life returns opportunity. When you give courage, life returns growth. And when you give love that's real, not fake, not forced, life eventually returns it in ways you never expected. What you give back becomes the legacy you leave. Your choices, your truth, your strength, they all return to you.